Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to the Horus Heresy lore breakdown, where we are now on the second short story, one by Nick Kime, called Feet of Iron. The very first time that we actually get a book focused on the Iron Hands. We are 20 books in, and this is pretty much the first time we get to see a story from Horus Manus' perspective. I mean, to be fair, we did get a brief glimpse from his view in Fulgrim, was it? But that was about it, and then he lost his head, and that was it. Poor Iron Hands. I mean, I know they're not the most popular of chapters or legions in, this timeline, but they really have not gotten a whole lot of, anything from the Horus Heresy, have they? Poor bastards. Anywho, in this short story, we will be getting a nice view into the Iron Hands, a nice view into their philosophy of how the flesh is weak, but not all flesh, and, as usual, we will also be getting a grand view of Eldar diplomacy in action, where they decide to try to warn Horus Manus against the future by trapping him in a labyrinth with a demon and freaking him the fuck out. The things you would do to someone if you didn't want them to listen to you. Ever. Eldar. I would say never change, but no, honestly, consider changing. At least your diplomacy habits, if nothing else. Though there is one fresh little take to the Eldar in this short story, namely that they are not the craft world variant. Instead, the main force of the Eldar appear to be exodites. This is a less known part of Eldar society that was formed before the Great Fall. In broad strokes, Eldar society can be divided into three major areas. Those who remained during the fall, those who had basically fallen themselves due to their societal decadence, those who were always considered a bit of, oddball outcasts, the craft world Eldar, who were traveling around the fringes of the Eldar Empire, and the third are essentially the Eldar variant of Mormons. Pretty much. They were disgusted by the decadence and excess of Eldar society, and so they left to found their own little primitive societies on worlds scattered throughout the Eldar Empire. And literally, they disavowed technology and the decadence that it had brought. They wanted to live a harsher, more natural life, although that does not mean that they're savages, not by any stretch of the imagination. How do I put this? They specifically disavow most Eldar technology, but they do know how to use it. So it's not that they have degenerated into a Stone Age style of existence, or that they have lost the technological know-how of their predecessors. They simply choose not to wield it for the vast majority of day-to-day purposes. And what technology they do use, they combine with the natural flora and fauna of their exodite worlds. This leads to some pretty fucking awesome stuff, where you will see Eldars riding massive goddamn dinosaurs with laser cannons mounted on their backs. The fact that the Eldar exodites do not have an army book, and yet the Custodes do, is a crime. A fucking crime, I tell you. We have more than enough power armor in 40k, and in my honest opinion, the Custodes were never meant to be an army in that way. But the Exodite Eldar, oh yeah, they could totally work. They could absolutely work. You'd have Stegodon riders for heavy artillery. You'd have T-Rex riding Eldar for elites. You'd have Petrodon riders. All kinds of insane and cool shit. And yet, nope, more power armor. Oh, fucking power armor. Anywho, Exodite Eldar are pretty cool. Might have to do a lore video on those not too long away, but then again, I keep saying that, not doing it, do I? So, in this case, however, the Iron Hands are fighting a group of exodites that have managed to tame the local fauna, which consists apparently of massive burrowing sandworms that the Eldar then ride into battle. Neat. This would also be a kit basher's wet dream, the exodites, because you can go down to your local toy store and buy a few plastic toy dinosaurs and just stick Eldars with lances on top of them. And voila! Cavalry unit. Anywho, the Iron Hands, of course, engage with their usual disdain and murder the first few Eldar. We also get our first look into the Iron Hands here, with a mention of their clan structure, with the Averni being one of them, and they are not merely just fans of ancient Gauls, they are also major Terminator fetishists, and maintain a huge number, relatively speaking, of the, at this point, they gotta be practically prototype level cataphracti armor. And utilizing the abilities of this comically heavy suit of armor to the full extent, the Averni clan make short work of the exodite Eldars. Then again, they also bring in like another 1,000 legionnaires, so I suppose it was an exceedingly unfair fight to begin with. Then, after having butchered all of the pointy ears, the Iron Hands have a little whinge and a whine about the army elements that apparently can't keep up with the Legiones Astartes. No shit. You know, I remember reading a piece of fluff in second edition, something like that, way back when they talked about why the Astartes did not operate alongside the Imperial Guard, or why they did not deploy specialized support or auxiliary elements of a human nature. And it was basically stated that during the Horus Heresy, there were experiments to try and integrate human formations alongside the Legiones Astartes, but it pretty much always failed. Either the Space Marines would lose too much of their edge trying to match their pace with the humans, or the Space Marines would just go fuck it and head off on their own, therefore defeating the entire point of a combined arms formation. In this case, the Iron Hands feel that they are being held back by their army auxiliaries, mechanized and motorized elements of army troops that simply cannot keep up with the Iron Hands in the harsh desert conditions on the planet that they are currently fighting, and, well, I mean, you can hardly blame them. Deserts are some of the shittiest places in which to wage war, because sand is a fucking nightmare for, well, everything, frankly. Like, almost every single piece of modern-day military equipment is going to respond very poorly to sand entering its inner workings, to the point of just flat-out breaking down. And the usual filtering equipment used to keep such nonsense out of the delicate inner workings of these machines, well, they do just fine against dust, although even then they will eventually get clogged. But sand is dust on steroids. It's like tiny little pebbles constantly being sucked into every single piece of ventilation equipment anywhere and everywhere at once. It will clog the fuck out of filters, and it will ruin machinery. Not to mention the impact that extreme heat and sand has upon regular good old-fashioned infantry. So, it's not much of a surprise that the army auxiliary elements are simply not able to keep up with the Space Marines. But of course, the Iron Hands don't really care too much about that. All they see is that they are far, far behind schedule, and if they didn't have the Imperial auxiliaries, they probably could move a lot faster. Although even at this point, it is very clear that there is still an ongoing debate within the Iron Hands as to whether or not the motto that the flesh is weak renders all flesh weak, and that'll kind of be the point of this short story as well. Now, we also get a small, brief little view into how the Iron Hands view the future, and also Ferrus Manus. Now, both of the Iron Hands captain here are, they're not afraid of Ferrus Manus, they just know that he's an angry little bastard, and that if they displease him, he is going to demonstrate that anger. And it seems to be something that they are both very sanguine about. They just view it as a fact. If Manus gets angry, Manus gets angry, and that's all there is to it. They also quite lovingly refer to him as the Father, which is a real nice little touch I like. A little bit of intimacy within the otherwise so cold and dour Iron Hands. And there is actually a touch of humor to them, which I really appreciate. There is a mention of how Ferrus Manus did not object to the Iterator order, and how he simply let them into his legion, no problems, no sound of disquietude, no protest, no nothing. He just let them in. It seems odd. I mean, he's Ferrus Manus, the Gorgon. Surely he does not give even the faintest of flying fucks about art or iteration, veneration, poetry, music, any of that nonsense, and, he doesn't. But he also realizes that these iterators are civilians, and therefore, as long as he keeps pushing his legion like he always has, they will inevitably fall behind and falter. And most of them might even go home voluntarily. Problem solved. That is a wonderfully Iron Hands solution to the problem, I cannot lie. And there is of course another force on this planet that are going to be remaining true to themselves as well. The Eldar. So, why are the Eldar even bothering with this? Apparently, they are engaged in their usual conspiratorial nonsense, where even they themselves cannot agree on how futile it may or may not be. They have come to the conclusion that Ferrus Manus is a key player in the upcoming heresy, and instead of informing the Emperor or assassinating Horus or any of the other traitors, any of them, they decide to go for Ferrus Manus, which makes an awful lot of not sense in the slightest. And there's two Eldar. One is saying that he must try to impart a warning upon Ferrus Manus, a warning against his most beloved brother in this case, which, again, good luck. And the other is basically just like, you're a retard, you know that, right? This isn't gonna work. It's Ferrus Manus you're talking about here. He is literally the most unbending of all of the Monkeg superhuman assholes. And your entire plan is, I'm gonna show him a vision, and that'll make him want to beat his most trusted brother to death with his silver hands. Of course. It's like saying you'll convince a mother to drown her newborn child because you showed her a Walt Disney picture. It's... The entire Eldar discussion, I don't know whether or not I should praise the author for making their mindset so utterly ridiculous and alien, or lambast him for how ridiculous they sound. A mix of both, I think. They're even... The best fucking part, is when one of the Eldar is questioning the plan, and he's like, well, Monkeg, especially people like the Primarchs, they tend to be rather distrustive. Your plan is to wage war upon these Monkeg, then abduct their leader, put him into a psychic torture chamber, scare the living shit out of him with vague, unexplained visions of a horrible future, and then go like, see? You wouldn't like that now, would you? It's insane. It's actually insane. Here's an analogous, all right? So, you want to warn somebody about somebody else, about an unknown danger that is outside, and if you're not careful, your life will be shit, right? Okay, in that case, you tell your friend that you're gonna meet him somewhere, right? And then your friend, believing you to be, a nice person, goes out there. Then you hire a bunch of people to pelt eggs at him for a few hours, before another group of people run up in a van, throw him in the back, hogtie him, and force him to watch the Star Wars Christmas special over and over and over and over again until you see the brain matter start to leak from his skull. Then you randomly drop him off somewhere in the middle of goddamn nowhere, and you go, see? Dangerous to be outside, right? You would think that the ancient Eldar would at this point have realized that, okay, here's how they could do it, which might actually make a degree of sense. They could do what Euphrates Keeler did. Euphrates didn't go straight to Dorn and go like, "Sup, Primarch dude, you're gonna get killed and the only thing that's gonna be left of you is your hand, and your sons are gonna worship that as a relic. Oh, and by the way, the Emperor's gonna be like a god and shit, and then Gilliman's gonna return, and he's gonna be like, ha 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 ha, I forced you to break up your legions whilst I kept millions of Ultramarines on ice. Loser!" No, she didn't do that. She went to his second, somebody who already was weakened with doubt, and she didn't attack him, she didn't lambaste him, she didn't try to screw with him, she simply just showed him something. And that was that. But no. Eldar diplomacy at its finest. First, let's try to shoot them, then we'll try to tell them the truth. Hey, just infiltrate the Imperium, for God's sake. Find bureaucrats, find officials, find people high within imperial political life, find senators, find members of the Senatorium Imperialis, find army leaders, anyone with sufficient political clout to get in contact with the Primarchs, and have them pitch it instead. I mean, surely, if you've got the excess resources to attack a legion-sized formation, losing an entire world and its exodite populace in the process, mind you, then surely you can do that. It's not like this shit comes as a surprise to you. You've been whinging and moaning about this Horus Heresy and the Primordial Annihilator for a few thousand years at this point, but no. Direct diplomacy, always better. Oh, and I almost forgot. It gets worse. Yes, it actually does, because the Eldar are not merely just trying to kill the Iron Hands. That would be, bad enough. It tends to be difficult to become overly friendly with the man who is actively trying to kill you, but it is the way in which they are trying to kill the Iron Hands. They have woven some Eldar nonsense sorcery to turn their bionic implants upon them, to the point where bionic arms will struggle to obey the wielder's commands, or even outright try to kill whoever it is attached to. The Iron Hands practically worship bionics. It'd be like beating a Christian to death with a statue of baby Jesus. Both insulting and lethal at the very same time. Quite simply put, there is just no way whatsoever that the Eldar could be going about this any worse. Literally, I cannot think of a single thing that the Eldar could be doing at this point in time that would make their effort of turning Ferrus Manus to their desired path any less likely than this. In fact, I feel confident in stating that even if the Eldar were to walk straight up to Ferrus Manus before this whole warfare nonsense began, and told him straight to his face, "Hello there, I know we're Xenos, but please don't kill us. We're only here to tell you to kill your most favored brother, Fulgrim," that would still have had a higher percentage chance of success than what the Eldar are currently doing. Anywho, the Eldar plan appears to be to lure Ferrus Manus into a trap. He and his Morlocks advance into a sandstorm, or at least what appears to be a sandstorm, where their bionic acts up and traps them, even killing several of the Morlocks, until a further formation of Iron Hands is sent in, and they discover the Morlocks busy killing one another as their bionics turn on them, and they drag them out. But Horus Manus is gone. No one knows where he is, no one knows where he has disappeared to. He has been trapped by the Eldar within a vision of sorts, and they are trying to show him the future, at least as they perceive it. And I stress that word, perceive it, because the way in which the Eldar try to again turn him are... Well, I shan't even bang on any further about it. You know it's probably going to be horrible, and yes, it is. It is crude representations of Horus Manus's brothers in statuary form, both before and after their corruption. An image of the Imperial Aquila looking sickly and wounded, and also the decapitated heads of Horus Manus being lorded over by a statue of Fulgrim. Oh, and the statue, of course, instantly, mysteriously, makes Horus Manus somehow feel betrayed. The imagery is heavy-handed to a degree that I would consider it a joke, and almost still do, if it weren't for how serious the Eldar take this nonsense. Horus continues his journey into the labyrinth, encountering yet more heavy-handed imagery. He also engages a serpent. At first, it seems like a reflection of Fulgrim, but according to the Eldar later on, they actually didn't intend for that to be there. That was apparently some kind of demonic entity that, again, somehow managed to sneak into Horus Manus's warning vision. And I mean, let's be fair here, the Eldar have already tried to kill him in his Iron Hand, so what's a small demonic incursion as well, eh? We also get a little bit more of an insight into Horus Manus's mind. Horus Manus's mind, that's quite the word. Which is quite interesting. He's got a little bit of the Perturabo in him. He worries that he is not quite the equal of some of his more luminous brothers. He fears being overlooked, but whereas Perturabo hides his desire and doesn't want to show it to anyone, Manus is very clearly seeking that acceptance and is also getting it grudgingly from his brothers. He also understands that perhaps he is a little bit responsible for it as well, that his gruff nature might push others away. He remembers, for example, when Vulcan presented him with a spatha, instead of remarking upon the excellent craftsmanship, he instead sent a little bit of a barb towards Vulcan, and whilst he tried to disarm it with a smile, it came across more like a cocky grin. And he's even now in this vision going like, shouldn't have done that. It's a bit cuntish of me. Which is nice. I like the fact that they're trying to humanize Horus Manus a little bit. Which, again, considering he only seems to exist to get his head chopped off, I mean, small consolation, but hey, it is something. And it's more than the Iron Hands are currently getting outside. They are trying to break through the Eldar's defenses to destroy their last node on the planet. Once this is done, the planet will finally be fully unveiled to the invaders so that they can wrap up the rest of the Eldar with little difficulties. However, the mysterious sandstorm and the shield is preventing them from doing so. The shield cannot be breached through even the heaviest of bombardments, and the moment they enter the sandstorm, the bionic augments of the Iron Hands start to fail and eventually turn against them. There seems to be no way for them to pierce the Eldar's defenses until one of their number detaches his augmetic arm and suggests that he should lead a detachment of Imperial Army troopers into the Eldar defenses instead, since they will not be affected by the storm. The Iron Hand is at first outright mocked for this idea because it's ridiculous. Where iron has failed, surely flesh will falter even quicker. But it's not like they have a whole lot in the way of options, and so off he and his Imperial Army auxiliaries go. And whilst on the one hand, the other Iron Hands were indeed correct in that this group would also have failed, but their timing was impeccable. By the time that they are just about to run out of steam and all be murdered, Horus Manus reappears, leads the Iron Hands into the few remaining Eldar, who at that point flee back into the webway or are simply just slaughtered. The reason for Horus Manus' sudden reappearance is that the Eldar gave up on their subtle, heavy quotation marks, arts, and instead decided to appear in front of Horus Manus. First, of course, he shows him a throne with a corpse king on top of it, because, again, subtlety. And then the giant snake monster thingy, which unveils itself with its noble features. Again, a clear reference to a certain other Primarch, but hey, details. And then the Eldar appears, and like, hey, dude. Right, so I know I tried to kill you in here and outside, and I know I trapped you, and I know you're probably not feeling particularly talkative right now, but this is the time I have chosen to tell you that you need to listen to me, okay? Because if you trust me after all that I've done to you, then I can save the entire galaxy. Sounds good? And then Horus Manus punches his head off, because what other option could possibly exist at that point? Again, if the Eldar had literally just had a fleet appear next to the Iron Hands and be like, hey, okay, so we could kill each other, but hear me out. At least then Horus Manus might have been tempted to, alright, okay. I mean, I'm still gonna shoot you, but I'll give you 5 minutes first. Still wouldn't have worked. Again, Horus Manus of all fucking people, but I guess they were trying to turn him. Here's the thing. What could Horus Manus really have changed? First and foremost, the only thing he could really have affected would be Fulgrim. Because Horus Manus saved Fulgrim's life in a space battle where he placed his own warship between the enemy's weaponry and Fulgrim's warship, which might have seen him killed. Alright, so he could have chosen to not do that, and then Fulgrim may have died, and then, yay! Heresy averted. At least parts of it, but again, Fulgrim and Horus Manus are the closest of friends at this point. The closest of friends that you can only really be with someone when you're in Horus Manus' position, and you don't really have a whole lot of friends except for the one. Well, two in his case, I guess. There's Vulcan as well. It makes very little sense for the Eldar to try this, to the point where even the other Eldar seer is like, yeah, this is dumb. It's not gonna work. And he just bitches and moans throughout the entire procedure. Even when the other Eldar Farseer is wounded by Horus Manus, he's just like, yeah, I could have told you this wouldn't work. Don't worry though, I'll drag your carcass off to a hospital. It's the least I could do. And there ends the short story, with Horus Manus breaking free of the Eldar mind trap and helping his legion overcome the last piece of Eldar resistance. I don't want to say that this short story was pointless, because it's the only story we've had of the Iron Hands, but no, this short story was pretty goddamn pointless. It does give us a little bit more of a view into Horus Manus' mind, which is nice. It gives a little bit of extra information about the Iron Hands, which is nice, but the story itself is utterly inconsequential. It has no bearing on anything else, nor would it ever have. It's not even a Hail Mary pass that the Eldar are attempting here. It's a 1 in a trillion shot that, even if you make that 1 in a trillion, you're gonna have to do it again just to confirm it. It's... Then again, I guess that is kind of the point of short stories, to add in the pointless things, just little touches of things that you don't actually want to be adding in other areas. I guess, but still. It's not a bad story, it's just a very inconsequential story. Anywho, let's move on to the third short story then, Gav Thorpe's The Lion. I'll give you one guess as to what that one is about.